Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily Nicole if you guys are new here, and if you're not new here, welcome back. I make lifestyle videos here on YouTube. I post sporadically and I haven't posted in like 3 weeks, but nevertheless I'm excited to film. I say that every time. But in today's video I want to open up about my mental health a little bit more and really share what's kind of been going on over the past year. And little Tua's running around back there, but yeah, I finally feel like I'm in a good space to kind of share. I'm obviously still like on a healing journey, but I am gonna keep this video focused more on probably the title above. I have borderline personality disorder, and I'm going to be kind of sharing like how the background a little bit on my mental health, and then like walking through what borderline personality is, and then sharing some of the DSM's version of what it is if you have it. So I have my notes here, so if I keep looking down it's because of that. But yeah, so basically ever since I was younger I had depression, OCD, and anxiety disorder. Like, we knew that for sure. I would say that in college I like really started suffering bad with like my OCD and also borderline personality, but I had no idea at the time in college that I had BPD. So that's just something I want to put out there, because there's definitely a different version of how you will see someone if you see someone who is untreated and someone who is treated or in treatment. So yeah, just want to share that, and hopefully by just sharing my experience you guys can kind of look at people with personality disorders and mental health conditions in a different way, because I know that I would have liked to seek a video like this, and I did seek some, but anyways, I'm getting into the video too quickly. So yeah, basically I've always had those kind of issues. That was never like a big secret. Like, yeah, I've had them forever. So I would say that there was a lot of triggers in previous relationships that I just never like really addressed, because again, I didn't know that I had like borderline personality disorder. But anyways, fast forward my life, past through college, past moving to Boston, and I was actually alone for quite a bit of time during quarantine, and I started having these breakdowns. Like, I was having panic attacks, I was having really bad mood shifts and swings. It was happening so frequently I had no idea what was going on, because previously I was supposedly misdiagnosed with PMDD, which is basically a lot of the symptoms of bipolar disorder and also borderline personality disorder, but it's totally different reasoning why. So a lot of these issues kind of overlap, but the root cause is what kind of makes it different. So BPD versus bipolar. Bipolar is a mood disorder, BPD is a personality disorder, so it comes from external triggers, whereas mood disorders come from like inside. Like, your hormones and your body internally is not regulating correctly, whereas something like I have is like external triggers. So we may like act out in some of the same ways, but the reason why we have it is very much different, if that makes sense. Same with PMDD. PMDD has similar symptoms to BPD and bipolar. However, it's the reason why it's caused is by the hormones in our body due to a woman's like menstrual cycle. But so now that I like clarified that, yeah, I started, just like having mood swings, and I started like talking to my therapist again, and I just felt like it was kind of going nowhere at that point. My mom flew out to Boston to come and see me like last spring, and ever since last spring, it's been like a full journey towards like recovery basically. So I was like just having panic attacks, super depressed, super anxious, also having feelings of being really elevated and like wanting to start like crazy businesses and do a bunch of like wild things, but it would be up and down, and to the point where I was like, I needed my mom to come out. She came out. I was basically like, I'm not okay, I don't know what's going on, I'm like sobbing, and I was just like, I think I need help. Like, I don't think this is depression or anxiety anymore. Like, I think I have bipolar disorder. And so that kind of led me to eventually just like other circumstances kind of fell in place, so I moved back home to Michigan. And when I moved back home to Michigan, obviously I had first started just like dating Mitchell, and then all the triggers come back. So it's like it like really amplifies your borderline personality when you're in a relationship, because a lot of things that are so triggering do come from relationships. So there was a point in the relationship where I was just like, I need to see a psychiatrist. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I was like always upset, always having mental breakdowns, I was having panic attacks. I was getting so angry. I was like just sad. I was just like in a really funky place all the time, and it just sucked. So I finally went to my family doctor, got a referral to a psychiatrist, saw a psychiatrist, and then finally got into the correct dialectical behavioral therapy class. So it's been a long journey, and I'm still on it, and I'm still like in weekly therapy for it, but I just wanted to give that background story before I just like jump into what BPD is and how it's affected me. I do want to keep this video pretty narrow because I don't want to talk about like the anxiety portion or the depression portion or the OCD. Like, I just want to share the not even the misconceptions. I just want to share like honestly what borderline personality is, why people get it, and just state the facts, because I have tons of videos that I could share, like my personal journey with borderline personality, and I can definitely do that with like all the different symptoms. Like, I could make long videos on everything, but for the sake and time of this video, I just wanted to be very raw and share. Yes, I have it. I have it comorbidly, so I have the BPD along with other diagnoses such as the depression, anxiety, and OCD. So there's that. I'm just going to quickly define what borderline personality is for you guys according to Google, just to make it like super concise and so I don't ramble, because there's one thing to like just talk about all of my experiences and how it's defined for me, because mental health is going, like your mental health diagnosis, whether it's depression, anxiety, a personality disorder, or a mood disorder, whatever it is, it's going to affect you a little bit differently, and you may carry some of the traits that other people with the same disorder don't carry, or you may have some things that you deal with that they don't have to deal with. So I could spend a lot of time talking about all of that, and I will in future videos, but so the point leading up to me really seeking a psychiatrist is, even though I had already like got a psychiatrist, like I spoke to her, but still we hadn't really known yet. And even before, like leading up to my psychiatry appointment, which therapy and the healthcare system I could just rant about forever, because it took me so many years to finally seek and understand the right treatment for me, because I was misdiagnosed with, it was definitely just a long journey to finally find, you know, someone who was going to be a little more specialized in that. But while I was like waiting for my psychiatry appointment, I knew I had mood swings, so that I knew. I was searching like mood swings, and I was like, bipolar, no, that doesn't seem quite right. Like, there was different types of bipolar, and I was like, I don't know if it's matching. And then I saw borderline, and I was like, that like is a really scary name. And even like as someone who didn't know that they had it and has it, like I even fell into the stigma a little bit, and I was like, I don't know, like that sounds like a terrifying term, but like I think I have this. And that's when I really sought help. And literally the first day that I spoke to the psychiatrist, she was like, has your previous therapist ever mentioned borderline personality? And I was like, no, he hasn't, but I've done like a lot of research on it. So I went in pretty educated, but because I kind of had figured it out on my own, which is actually just like not the norm. A lot of people with personality disorders don't have insight. Thankfully, borderline personality is one of the only personality disorders that does allow for your mental cognition to like give you insight that there is an issue. So that's like really great for me, I guess, but I just couldn't imagine the struggle with other disorders. But yeah, I mean, I was able to recognize myself. Obviously, like I had been in therapy, I knew I had some other issues to deal with and like health conditions, but I don't think that there was something that switched. I think it was really like my relationship and not wanting it to be toxic and really wanting to fix it and not give up on it. And so that's why I really started to do some digging, and yeah, I gained the insight myself. But yeah, again, not everyone can do that, and I think that's really the difference between someone who is like someone who has insight versus someone who doesn't have insight into their disorder. It really makes or breaks the whole situation, whole dynamic of how you can, someone who's not in treatment versus someone who's in treatment. It really does like shape so much. So I'm in treatment. I wasn't always in treatment, so I'm not going to say that I had toxic traits. Like, I will say it, and I will share some of those with you guys. But yeah, anyways, I'll just get into the definition of what borderline personality is. So borderline personality is an illness marked by an ongoing pattern of varying moods, self-image, and behavior. These symptoms often result in impulsive actions and problems in relationships. People with borderline personality disorder may experience intense episodes of anger, depression, and anxiety that can last from a few days to a few hours. So that's what I would say is the main difference between BPD and like bipolar. I can make a whole video on like the differences between the two, but generally speaking, it's like rapid cycling. So, and it's external triggers. So bipolar is like internal mood disorder and longer periods of cycling, where mine were like 1 minute in the morning, I could be like super happy and like just so great, and then someone could say something and I'd feel slighted, and my whole day would turn into like, I could spiral into anger, I could cry, I could have a panic attack, like all different kinds of, like, it could be anger, it could be anxiety, or it could just be depression and like sadness. So there's a lot of different ways that like a trigger can kind of like show up in how it looks to you. Sometimes it does make you super angry and pissed, and then sometimes it does just, you know, make you bawl and sob and cry. So it's just, anybody who has borderline is going to see it a little bit differently, and that's normal because we're all different. So okay, so now that I kind of gave an overview of what it is, rapid cycling, I want to touch on how the DSM basically characterizes the disorder. So the first symptom or trait is distressed efforts to keep away from true or imagined abandonment. And so this could look like a lot of different things, but if someone, typically people who feel rejected, feel slighted in some way, feel like they're not being included, sometimes, like, and again, it's real or imagined, so sometimes it could happen, like there could be a real event, or it could be our interpretation of that event. So say someone, I actually had this one example, and it was like, say your friend's out to eat with another friend of hers, and she texts you and she's like, hey, like, this restaurant's really great, like, you should try it sometime. Now the normal mind might be like, wow, like, that's so nice that she had thought about me when she was out with my friend, like, you know, out with her friend, like, she didn't have to do that, that was so sweet of her to think of me, like, all happy. Or the BPD mind would probably frame it a little something like this: oh, she's out with another friend right now, and then she has the audacity to text me and tell me that, like, I should go try it. Why does she assume that I can just go out to this restaurant anytime I want? You see the difference? But the thing is I have insight into this, so I know the difference between the two thoughts now, but I didn't always know. And so while a normal mind without BPD might just look at it as just like, you know, your friend texted you and she wants you to know, but the BPD mind is like really annoyed with that rejection, of like getting really angry about like her being there with a friend and like not including you, or like just, you know, thinking that your friend is somehow just like thinking that you can just do whatever and like not considering you. That's kind of where that feeling of like slightedness comes from. and that rejection, abandonment is a huge theme, but it can obviously look different in each situation. Like abandonment with a relationship could mean like if your significant other is not texting you back, you could spiral into like an anger outburst. Or, you know, if it's different with your friends versus relationships versus with your parents, for me it's really all different, but just in general it's that like imagined or real abandonment. It's definitely a huge trigger that can set off a lot of emotions, a lot of rage, and a lot of cycling. So that's the first thing. Okay, then the second one is a form of unstable and extreme interpersonal relations described as alternating between extremes of devaluation and idolization. So I will kind of explain this one. It's basically black and white thinking, and it's not malicious. It's not a power-seeking thing. It's more so feeling so offended that you really believe that like this is the way it is, so then you tend to act like that. So black and white thinking, one person could say something to you, and instead of looking at them holistically as a person and saying, well, maybe that wasn't like the kindest thing to say, but like, you know, they still like are great, they're great, they're helpful, they're kind in this way, they're a hard worker. So black, you know, BPD mind or black and white thinking is, because you said this, you are an awful person, you suck, you are the worst, you are blah blah blah. And then that kind of frame of mind, you know, sticks with you, because throughout the day or throughout a few hours, like it really depends. But then there's other times when you can like really idealize someone. You can look at them and think you are the best person ever, like you could do no wrong, like you are so great. And then, but within that same relationship, you could also, if they trigger you in some way, say like one of my biggest triggers is like drinking. If someone drinks or around me, or if someone just doesn't text me back, or I'm trying to think of like other examples. Those are just two examples: drinking and not texting back, especially if those two things are together, like wow. But I will like any of those great qualities in that person will basically go away, and I'm just focused on like protecting myself in a way. And sometimes that could look like just withdrawing completely, going off, like getting really rageful, sobbing, crying, like all these different kind of things. But the idealization phase is also there, where you like, where when they really are nice and there for you, like they can do no wrong, but when they do something wrong, it's like the end of the world. And that's just not because we're like intentionally or maliciously doing it. It's just a back and forth between the black and white thinking. Or, you know, if you think one bad thought, they're all bad, and if you think one good thought, they're all great. So it's like really hard to balance that. But again, therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy specifically, is great for that. And yeah, you can definitely like have very stable and healthy relationships if you understand like how to deal with some of these traits that you may have. Okay, so the third one is identity disturbance, significantly and relentlessly unstable self-image. So I can kind of speak to this a little bit, but again, I could make whole separate videos on each one of these topics. I have been described as having a chameleon personality at times. I kind of like, not like intentionally, sometimes I can morph into the people around me, what they're doing, their hobbies, and it's actually, I mean, it's a good skill to be able to kind of like really understand, put yourself in someone else's shoes, but at the same time, this identity disturbance can be really just like, who am I? Like, just what do I like? It's hard for you to describe what you like, or what feels good to you. And oftentimes, like, we'll want to switch our identity a lot. So we will go from being one day like identifying as like a really blonde, bubbly, and then like wanting to dye your hair black and just be recognized as someone completely different. And that's just an example with me. Like, changing hair color frequently is something that's like a big part of it. But it's just really like a lack of knowing of who you really are, and a difficulty with not being like a chameleon and just like blending in and adapting to like other people around you. So that's something that's definitely like a challenge. But again, therapy can definitely help you like find your own way and everything. So okay, so the fourth trait or symptom within the DSM is the impulsive behavioral patterns in at least 2 aspects that are possibly self-damaging: substance abuse, sex, spending, binge eating, or reckless driving. I feel like I'm gonna say it again, like I could make a whole video on just like this, but one area that I specifically One area that I specifically struggle with was excessive spending, especially if I was feeling really manic or just trying to like fill a void or something like that. Thankfully, I have a lot of really supportive family members who've helped me really deal with that and taken over my finances. So it's really strange to other people when they're like, your parents manage your money. It's like, yes, but it's for the best. I know that it's really difficult to like be that vulnerable during your healing and during treatment and therapy, but handing over my finances to my parents was probably the biggest step that I've ever did, just because I did struggle so much with that. But yeah, okay. So the 5th one is affective instability because of significant affective instability because of a significant mood. So you'll like experience irritability, anxiety, dysphoria. You can really experience just a lot of like agitation, especially when you're being triggered or you're just feeling tense. And again, like borderline personality is also like comorbid, so it often like co-occurs with other disorders and mental health conditions. So yeah, it's definitely normal to be irritable all the time, to be so anxious, and to have anger and just these fluctuating emotions that you're always like, why are you always so mad? Why are you always so like, why are you so sensitive? That's a huge one. So it's definitely, yeah, that definitely, yeah, that's a huge part of it, is just like that irritation. And the 6th symptom or trait I should talk about is the chronic feelings of emptiness. This just basically feels like there's something missing. You're not like fully full and filled up. Like maybe some people get this feeling from God, or just being really happy or spending time with their loved ones. But with individuals with borderline personality disorder, it's definitely hard to feel full a lot of the time, especially because of the rapid mood swings that they're experiencing. They're often in a state of like distress or anger or anxiety. I often describe this emptiness feeling as like a feeling of boredom. It's like you want to do something, you want to feel something, but you just feel empty. And you can't, sometimes when I'm feeling like really empty, it's hard to get myself to actually do things. Like I'll make a list of things that I want to get done in a day, but I'll just start feeling kind of empty and bored, and nothing seems like it could kind of like fix that itch of like fullness, or like that nothing can fix like that emptiness. And it's not like, it's not a scary trait by any means. It's just a feeling that kind of comes and goes. I definitely feel like happy and full sometimes, and then sometimes I do feel like really empty and like sad and alone, and that's just part of the disorder. And it definitely like lies to you, because there's so many great things to think about and to be happy for in life, but it's just part of the illness, so it can make you feel really empty and bored. Okay, the 7th trait symptom here is misplaced and intense anger or trouble controlling anger, always angry or I don't know, temperamental. Yes, that's what that means. Okay, so basically in a like misplaced anger, I would describe this as basically when, say like someone like upsets you, like your reaction would maybe be more, it'd be an inappropriate reaction to what actually happened. So like, sure, you can be upset, but like to dwell on it, to like be that harsh and like mean about the situation, whatever it is that like set you off, is almost like it didn't call for that reaction, or you overreacted, or you're too sensitive about X, Y, and Z. That's very common. Like most people who have BPD have heard that, and it really does like like it doesn't validate their feelings, because the feelings are real. that's one thing, is that I will feel that deep, like my reaction, but it's all about controlling that inappropriate reaction because the rest of the world does not think and feel like that. So that's basically a huge part of it. It's just like the behavior will never be justified. Like how you choose to react is something that you can control. You can learn to control it. It's hard, but you can. And whether that's like controlling anger outbursts, name calling, I don't like hit or kick, but like some people get in physical fights. Like again, those feelings of rage are very real inside. Those feelings of anger, those feelings of sadness, like it's all very real. So never like tell someone you're being too sensitive about that, because I'm sure they are really feeling it inside. But the thing is it's how you react to it. That's what you can control, and that's what again makes someone with insight versus lack of insight into their disorder. It really makes or breaks a person. Okay, so number 8 is short-lived stress-related paranoid thoughts or extreme dissociative symptoms. This is the last one, but boy, do I struggle with paranoid thoughts. And my paranoia comes out in really weird ways. I will be paranoid about cheating. I will be paranoid, again, like that fear of like abandonment or rejection. My paranoia comes from drinking for some reason. I really don't feel comfortable when people drink or like do drugs around me. I kind of have this like paranoid thought that people are taking like pills and things, like substances that they're not supposed to be taking, like illegally, or hiding things from me. So again, it's all kind of rooted back to that rejection or like feeling like you're being left out or not knowing of something. It's that root of the fear. But yeah, paranoid thoughts definitely happen. It can be, you know, great. You can be great 1 month and you're not feeling any paranoid thoughts, or you know, you could be struggling at work, stress starts, you know, triggering you, and then you're back into like some negative paranoid thinking. And that's just part of it. And it's something that being able to recognize it, know when it's happening, and have like a really good support system and active skills in your back pocket to, you know, help you deal with things in that moment will definitely be helpful. So if you take anything away from me sharing this, is don't be stubborn, just seek help if you need help, and always get a second opinion. I got a second opinion and it really changed my life. It's continuing to change my life. Despite what the stigma says about people with BPD being monsters or this fatal attraction type of thing, it's really not. It's just managing how you cope and changing different ways to cope with those really big feelings inside. And that's basically it. I would love to share more about my mental health, things I've struggled with, how I'm overcoming them, and just share them with you guys, because if someone were to have told me some of these things while I didn't know, I think it would have been really helpful. So that's why I'm sharing it with YouTube and whoever might be struggling with something similar. But even if you're not, it's good to stay informed and to not carry around like a negative stigma of people who have personality disorders and people who suffer from mental health conditions, because I think we're kind of past that, and I would hope so, but you never know. So anyways, that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed me sharing a little bit of how I've come to this recent diagnosis, what it is, and a little bit of, and then me outlining all of these symptoms as in the DSM, and also sharing some of my thought processes integrated throughout it. Dula just jumped off that thing. Okay, well anyways, that's all I have for today's video. I will see you guys in another video very, very soon. Bye guys.